The Jewish sects. The Pharisees, Sadducees, Herodians and Zealots, which play so important a part in the Gospel records, all have their origin during the 2 centuries before the birth of Christ. They represent different reactions to the continuing clash between Hellenism and Jewish religious life. While the Maccabean struggle had settled the political problem of the relationship between the Syrian Seleucids and Judea, it forced upon Judaism the necessity of determining its own relationship to the outside world. The Pharisees. A party bearing the name of Pharisee is first mentioned during the reign of John Hyrcanus around 134 to 104 BC, and it is evident that even then there was an antagonism between the Orthodox Pharisee and the more open-minded Sadducee. The word Pharisee means separated one, and the name probably meant, in the first instance, one who had separated himself from the corrupting influence of Hellenism in his zeal for the biblical law. Josephus says that the Pharisees appear more religious than others, and seem to interpret the laws more accurately. Pharisees were punctilious in observing the laws regarding ceremonial purity. For this reason they could not purchase items of food or drink from a sinner for fear of ceremonial defilement. Nor could a Pharisee eat in the house of a sinner, although he might entertain the sinner in his own home. Under such circumstances the Pharisee would provide the sinner with clothes to wear, for the sinner's clothes might be ceremonially impure. With a sincere desire to make the law workable within the changing culture of the Greco-Roman world, the Pharisees developed systems of tradition which sought to apply the law to a variety of circumstances. During the 1st century before Christ, 2 influential Pharisaic teachers gave their names to 2 schools of legal thought. Hillel was the more moderate of the 2, ever considerate of the poor and willing to accept Roman rule as compatible with Jewish orthodoxy. Shammai, on the other hand, was more strict in his interpretation and bitterly opposed to Rome. His viewpoint ultimately found expression in the sect of Zealots whose resistance to the Romans brought on the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. The Talmud preserves the record of 316 controversies between the schools of Hillel and Shammai. Tradition, in Pharisaic thought, began as a commentary on the law, but it was ultimately raised to the level of law itself. To justify this teaching, it was maintained that the oral law was given by God to Moses on Mount Sinai along with the written law or Torah. The ultimate in this development is reached when the Mishnah states that oral law must be observed with greater stringency than the written law, because statutory law, or oral tradition, affects the life of the ordinary man more intimately than the more remote constitutional law, or the written Torah. In addition to the charge that Pharisaism involved little more than a concern for the minutiae of the law, the New Testament affirms that tradition had largely neglected the real intent of the law. For example, Matthew 15:3 says, Jesus replied, "And why do you break the command of God for the sake of your tradition?" As in many worthy movements, the early piety of those who had separated themselves from impurity at great cost, was exchanged for an attitude of pride in the observance of legal precepts. Men such as Nicodemus, Joseph of Arimathea, Gamaliel, and Saul of Tarsus represent some of the nobler souls from the Pharisaic tradition in the New Testament. To Saul, later Paul the Apostle, the Pharisee represented the epitome of orthodoxy, the most straightest sect of our religion. For example, Acts 26:5 says, "They have known me for a long time and can testify, if they are willing, that I conform to the strictest sect of our religion, living as a Pharisee." Pharisaism began well, and its perversion is a constant reminder that self-complacency and spiritual pride are temptations to which the pious are particularly susceptible.